We have Nicholas Liu. Nicholas' poems have appeared or are forthcoming in magazines such as Fuse Lit, Like Starling's Poetry Review, and Stand. He is also the co-editor of the independent online literary magazine QRLS.
Not true.
Oh, no longer?
Never was.
Oh, never was?
Contributed.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Alright. Nicholas contributed to the literary magazine. So can we now invite Nicholas to give his talk on that?
Oh, a lot of accessories for one talk. Can you all hear me if I don't use the mic? Is that okay? Okay, I'd rather not. Okay. It's a funny thing about writers. I think on some level we all think we're the only writer in existence. We think our experience is the experience. One writer comes up and says, writing is always hard work. Another writer says, if it's hard work, you're doing it wrong. I'm not going to say that in my presentation. I think there's no wrong way, there's no one experience. And, well, that's one thing we're going to touch on. Okay, so, this is pretty damn hard to read. Because you have all these lines going everywhere, constantly directing attention at new things. And this is my idea of a visual representation of the culture that we're in now. Every day you go online, okay, maybe not every day, every week you go online, there's another story about how Twitter is making us stupid, television is making us stupid, Facebook, the internet are making us stupid. There's one of the famous observations that I've written out of this discourse is that multitasking is bad for you. Multitasking carries a cognitive tax. Every time you direct your attention to something else, you lose that much more of your willpower. So basically, you're getting dumber and dumber listening to each speaker talk. But there are things you can do about that. So the question, I think, is, for our purposes, not is our culture of distraction making us stupid? Maybe it is, not my place to say. But is it making us poorer writers? Can a writer function immersed in this constantly flowing stream of so-called information? And, well, if I thought the answer was no, I would just go home right now like Cyril said he should do. But I think the answer is yes. How? Okay. Anyone know what this is?
Manuscript for On the Road.
Yes. This is Jack Kerouac's On the Road. And it's written on a continuous sheet of paper that just rolled up many, many times. Can't remember how many meters it is if you unroll it fully. Now, this is an interesting artifact. It kind of declares something in its physicality of the work as published and conceived. There's a kind of fevered continuity to it. You can't imagine someone sitting down, pounding out On the Road over 10 years. This is something that is of a piece that seems to, what was it Cyril said, come out of your soul like a rocket, and was in fact written in sort of haze of drugs and drink over a week. Not a recommended method, but there you go. So what I'm getting at here is that different pieces of writing, and I know this is a cliche, have their own demands. Not every poem, not every book can or should be written the way Kerouac wrote this. And if our culture is making it harder for us to produce On the Road now, with or without drinking drugs, that does not mean that our writing is necessarily poorer for it. Different modes of writing produce different end results. Okay, so my next question then is, what writing is possible in a state or culture of distraction, such as one we're in now? Anyone know what this is? Who's that? This is Maru the cat, blog, picture taken from a blog that gets thousands and thousands of views every day. People sit down, watch 10 minutes of a cat paddling a ball, jumping into boxes. I do this every day, first thing else. So the question is this of any use? Are we just throwing away our lives every time we look at Maru, every time we check an online news site, every time we go on Facebook to see whose drum party photos are up today? Maybe, but I'd say not necessarily so. Because distractions can be material. I don't agree with what Cyril said that it has to be something that you must write, that it's physically painful for you not to write. I don't think so. I guess I'm more sympathetic to what Kai Chai was saying earlier about anything being possible grist for the mill, which isn't to say that everything that can become a work of art will produce a good work of art. Definitely not. What I am saying is there's no filter that can stop you from writing a bad poem or story before you write it. You don't know. It could be something about Mara the cat, something about just some weird thing you overheard, and it could turn into something valuable and alive. Or it could be something that's been eating at you for years and years and years, and you put on paper, and what is it? It's another story. My grandmother died, I was so sad, and the white horse. That doesn't necessarily really turn into something good either. So I think it's unhealthy to worry too much about whether what you're doing is any good when you're doing it. Do it first. Ask yourself the question later. So what kind of works of art might we expect to arise from a culture of Twitter and streaming video and YouTube? Here's one example. This is a poem, or I don't know, prose poem, short story, whatever you want to call it, by a UK writer named Rachel Allen, who I'm going to have the privilege of publishing in a magazine and will do it soon. And she's written a series of 4chan poems. 4chan, for those who are maybe a little older, is a sort of network of bulletin boards. It's a site with many bulletin boards on it, built with stuff of varying degrees of edification. She's written one poem for each section. I think it's an ongoing project. And each of them tries to capture something of the feel of that section of the website considered as a text, as a work of literature. I'm not going to read this out, partly because I'm getting a bit parched. But there are many examples of vital and, to me, very intriguing work that's arising out of this stream of undifferentiated culture that we're immersed in. You have UK poet Sam Revere, who's written a series of what he calls austerity poems, which are inspired by budget cuts that have been going on in the UK. He's pared down his style from a style that's very lyrical, very well crafted, to something that is almost consciously anti-poetic. It's a sort of enactment of the austerity that's going on and a critique of it. You have other things like the poet, my friend Singh will know, named Brian or Liu. He's done a series of short stories, very short stories, each written in the form of a Craigslist missed connection. So I think that there are many forms of valid art, and one thing that writers, especially writers who are just starting out, should not do is limit themselves. That's pretty much all I have to say. So this is a line from a John Ashbery poem, but before I get to it, here's something he writes in a different section of the poem. He says, and this connects to that whole rocket out of the soul thing Cyril was saying earlier. Ashbery has a very different view. He says that he writes about the secret that makes hot tears spurt, which is that the soul is not a soul, has no secret, is small, and it fits its hollow perfectly. Its room, our moment of attention. I think that what Ashbery says about the soul could as easily apply to the writing process, that spark of creativity, if we must call it that. It is small, it can be small. There's no moment of time too short, too fleeting to give you that spark that you need to create something more or less vital. So eventually, even if you're a Kerouac, even if you sit down and pour yourself into a book day after day for a week, the balloon pops, the attention turns dully away. You can't stop it, and it's fine. I think that our task as writers now is to stay alert to every possible moment of attention. Don't let them slip by without you getting something out of it, harvesting an idea, channeling it towards something. Because the moment of attention is the only room we have. All we can do is try to inhabit it as fully as possible.